Carcassonne. Mi nombre es Joaquín y esto es Meeple Podcast. Welcome to Meeple Podcast, an audio program where it's a pleasure for inviting people not only from the Carcassonne, Spain community, but also from the international scene. In this space, we have already had the opportunity to listen to the Brazilian player and also the last individual World Championship runner-up, Melvin Quaresma. We have received Alexei Pegushev too, a Latvian who is settled in the United Kingdom, winner of the 8th season of Arena on the most famous online platform for board games, the BGA. He is also a YouTuber and streamer who has a channel where we can learn to improve our tactics and strategy level in the Carcassonne game. Today, someone linked to the world of geology has accepted our invitation. Passionate about music, photography, the development of computer applications, and also the Carcassonne game. A player for years who has reached a high level. He was required by Dan Shard for the United Kingdom national team to play the Carcassonne World Cup and European Team Championships online. He is creative and innovative person. He has invented some magnetic Carcassonne tiles that facilitate their cohesion and eventually their movement to reposition the board with respect to its base. He has created a Carcassonne of cubes, like puzzles, establishing his own rules, and he is designing his own expansion of the game. With us, Chris Wallace, better known as wallaceprime. Dear friend, we have only known each other for a very short time, but it's been motivated by the circumstance of the team competition, and on the top of that, thanks to the nice BGA platform. What is BGA for you?
Thank you, Joaquin, for inviting me. BGA serves two roles for me. The first is that it provides a great platform to pit your skills in the game of your choice against real people. For me, the other role BGA provides is friendship. I love chatting to all sorts of people from all over the world. Turn-based games are a real opportunity to have fun and chat with your opponent. I like to feel like I'm playing with a good friend sitting opposite me, and we can share the ups and downs of the game and sometimes of life itself. If you lose, it's so much nicer to lose against a friend who you respect than it is to lose against a mute robot that doesn't even say good game at the end.
You play for the UK team. What is the feeling you have when you participate with the national team, and what would you highlight from the tournaments played until today?
Although I was in the rugby team at school, I was very strong, so I was a prop in the scrum. It was more like a duty. I was never really into team sports. It was only when our captain, Dan Chard, invited me into the team that I found out what team spirit really was all about, and I loved it. We're a very close team and share our ups and downs, both within the team and as individuals. Hardly a day goes by that one of us doesn't share something on our Discord channel. The elation we shared when we got through to the semi-finals in the 2020 European Championships was absolutely amazing and something that I'll never forget.
What do you think about Spain national team at the moment?
From a personal viewpoint, I think Spanish players in general are a very friendly bunch of people, and I enjoy playing against them. As a team, you look to have a strong all-round team, with 8 of you currently in the top 200 in Arena. Some teams tend to have one or two really strong players, but are then let down by a weaker squad. However, we're both in the same group, and both of our teams are going to have to be on our top form to get through.
And which teams do you highlight as clear contenders to go to the next round?
I'm not a betting man, but if I had to put money on one team from each group to get through, then I'd go for Brazil from our group, then Netherlands, Romania, and Catalonia from the other groups.
Forecast for the final, champion and runner-up.
Much as I'd love to get through to the final, I think it will be Brazil as the winners and maybe Netherlands as the runner-up. Before I saw the team lineups, I would probably have said Japan as the clear favourites, but this year their team just doesn't look as strong.
I wish you good luck in the World Team Carcassonne Online Championship.
Thank you. You too, except when we are playing against each other. I think the luck of how the 5 players in each team are paired against each other will have a big influence in this tournament, and it will potentially allow some big upsets and give some unexpected results.
Chris, tell me, what do you like more, the competitive Carcassonne-based Carcassonne or the fun with the expansions?
Tough question. Until I joined the UK team, I would have said with expansions. However, since playing for the UK team, I now play almost exclusively base game. I think I play by gut feeling, that is intuitively, rather than analytically. Because of this, I found that my performance dropped significantly when I changed between playing with base game and with extensions. The different playing strategies seem to disrupt my internal Carcassonne engine, so I try to avoid swapping before I represent the UK in tournaments.
You have many hobbies. How do you spend so much time in Carcassonne?
I love learning, but I messed up my exams and didn't go to university when I left school. Instead, over the past 20 years, I've studied early in the morning before work and gained 2 degrees, a BSc in Computing and IT and a BA in Arts and Humanities. However, those are finished, but I still wake up very early in the morning and Carcassonne now fills that gap.
Wow! Magnetic tiles and cubism is so crazy. For me, it's a very interesting theme, but I'm very surprised of it. You have made it almost professional. Have you thought about selling the idea to Hammersing Gluck?
I have conflicting feelings about that. I'd love to make money from it and see my name on the box, but I think it would be prohibitively expensive to make commercially. I also admire the generosity of Hans-Im Gluck in allowing Carcassonne Central to share the fan-made expansions on their site, as long as it's not for profit. So I'd not want to potentially put that at risk by using loopholes to sell my Carcassonne ideas.
Are you a member of Carcassonne Central?
I've been a member for a few years, but initially that was just to be able to download the Carcassonne annotated rules. For me, an invaluable resource in interpreting the rules when different expansions are mixed together. However, recently I came out of the shadows and started actively contributing. It's great getting to know a new bunch of enthusiasts.
Good. Do you know Hector Madrona, Meepeldron?
I only know him as Meepeldrone from the website, but he seems very knowledgeable and generous with thoughts, advice and praise.
Yes, he is. I have recently interviewed him. He knows perfectly all the expansions, mini expansions, commemorative tiles, fan art, etc. Do you think someone can have everything related to this material? Because it seems like a utopia to me to hold everything. What's more, I think it's also unlikely that anyone could play a meta Carcassonne.
Unless someone is very lucky or exceedingly determined, I think there will always be one last piece required to complete someone's collection, particularly if you include fan-made expansions and variants, such as my Cubison and magnetic tiles. I prefer playing and making to collecting, so I'm lucky that I haven't been tempted down that rabbit hole. I did, however, track down an Italian edition of Carcassonne South Seas, as it appears out of production and the English editions were very expensive.
Very interesting. Uh, Mippeldron wants to know for when Cubison competitions.
Oh, as I couldn't sell my creations without completely changing the artwork to avoid copyright issues, the sheer amount of labour and cost in making the cubes and the magnetic tiles means that they're likely to remain rare items. So it's with a sad heart that I think Cubison competitions will be unlikely.
Are you going to upload the steps to make a Cubison at home, like yours?
The tricky part in making Cubison is getting labels that fit the cubes. I made the cubes by cutting lengths of 34mm square softwood and buying 33mm laser labels to print the faces on. This should have given me a little margin of error for sticking the faces on. However, what's called 34mm wood is actually nearer 32.5mm, so all 438 labels would need trimming on at least two sides, and that's an absolutely soul-destroying task, as I found out when I made my very first set. However, I recently bought a Silhouette Cameo 4 computer-controlled cutting machine, and that lets me cut labels to the exact size I want. It's even sensitive enough to cut through the label, but not the backing sheet, so you can still peel the labels off easily. So, to answer your actual question, yes, I could provide a list of steps to make Cubison for those that have the necessary tools, including a list of what tiles go on which cubes. I've tried to keep the same proportion of tiles as in the base game, so 9 times as many road bends to crossroads, but I distribute them so no cube has more than 2 of any particular tile on it.
Thank you. And will you extend the magnetic Carcassonne to other expansions?
Oh, I'd love to, but the magnetic tiles take even longer than the cubes to make, and the amount of manual cutting through 2mm greyboard left my fingers sore for a few days after I made that first set. However, once I've made and fitted our new kitchen later this year, that'll keep my wife happy, my wife will let me buy a laser cutter, and that will be a game changer. Perfectly cut cardboard tiles with the notches for the magnets, all made while I look lovingly at the process through a pair of protective safety goggles. Bliss!
I have read the guidebook by Steve D. and Dan Shard, The Buff of Carcassonne. I hope to have the opportunity to speak with Dan about that. And I am also writing a book in Spanish language. Although the Book of Carcassonne talk about tactics and strategic concepts, I have to say that I don't think it's in a deep way of it. Complex and detailed study about it, I mean. Do you think it would be interesting to cover more specific tactical and strategic literature?
Absolutely. On our Discord channel, the UK team quite often chat about various game positions we found ourselves in, and we've discussed the pros and cons of different moves. These could be a great source of material for a second volume of Stephen Dan's book, and I, for one, would be very happy to buy that volume.
Another question. Alexei Pegushev lives in UK. Have you had the opportunity to meet him?
I've only met him once at the UK Championships held last year at the UK Games Expo in Birmingham. But he's a very interesting man, and we've had a couple of interesting discussions in BGA regarding how we count tiles and how we express emotion when playing our instruments. He is an incredibly talented musician, and musicality seems to be a shared commonality in a few players I know. I play the chromatic harmonica, although not to anything like the same level as Alexei plays the piano, and another of our UK team is in a band. Maybe the processing of patterns, which could be considered a large part of music, is transferable to playing or analysing Carcassonne.
Alexei and Nosebo are similar, I think, systematic and analytical players. But from your point of view, what are the differences among them? And above all, between this kind of player compared to other more creative, like a Japanese one?
Oh, another tough question. You have a knack for asking good questions. When I first started playing on BGA, Nosebo was the pinnacle that I aspired to. He seemed just as good at playing with extensions as with the base game, whereas I don't think I've ever seen Alexei play with extensions. So, for all his undoubted analytical skill, I think Alexei still relies to some degree on instinct. This to me is reinforced by the occasional times during his videos when he has to stop vocalising his thoughts. I expect this is to let his intrinsic neural network heuristic skills suggest the right move. After I finished my computing degree, I went on and studied biological psychology, exploring the brain, to find out how the human brain works, as I've become so interested in artificial intelligence and neural networks. At some level, I think we're just trained black boxes that spit out what we hope will be the best move. So I think what you describe as creative players are just better at seeing the whole picture and creating effective moves that combine different areas of the board. I would love to reach 700 ELO and achieve master status, but I need to improve the analytical side of my game first. BGA is great for allowing you to replay past games and learn from them, but this is less exciting than actually playing, so I admit I don't do it as much as I should. However, I'm currently trying to write some C++ software to let me build up a database of past games that I can analyse to see if I can distill some useful guidance from it. It might never come to anything, but I enjoy programming in the same way that some people like doing crossword puzzles. I like the challenge.
Chris, we are close to finish the interview. I wanted to ask you about your background in Carcassonne. How did you know the game? How did you begin in competitive Carcassonne? And why did you start to be a creative designer of magnetic tiles, puzzle game, etc.? These questions could have been the first at the top of the interview, but since it was one of the most interesting, I wanted to save it for last.
I started playing Carcassonne with my family, my son, now 14, and my wife, about 5 years ago when we bought our first base set. It was a firm favourite, and we added several expansions. As I got better at the game, I used to challenge myself at playing against the computer AI in the J Cloisterzone app. I quickly improved to the point that I could beat the AI every time. Then one Christmas, I discovered BGA. Real people were much harder to beat than the computer, but as I became more aware of different playing styles, my game improved. In the first season of Arena, I finished 16th. This was the highest ranking for a UK player, and it brought me to the attention of Dan Chard, who invited me to join the UK team. Regarding my creative side, I'm really not sure I know how or why my mind works the way it does, but I think having a wide range of interests means I have a bigger mixing pot for the ideas to come from. Cubison, that originated as a way to prevent tile counting. Although tile counting is an absolutely essential part of the competitive game, it can discourage recreational players. The element of chance in picking a tile face from the cube effectively stops tile counting. The magnetic tiles, they were the eventual response to my seeing the tile grids you can buy that let you clip 3x3 grids together that you then place the tiles in. Now, I'm a very visually oriented person, and I didn't think the empty grids looked nice. My first alternative was to make individual 3D printed tile holders. These had slightly concave sides that lightly gripped the tile, and magnets to ensure alignment and keep the tile arrangement locked in place, so you could move the whole thing around. However, you'd need one holder for each tile, and they were difficult to shuffle. I only made about 9 grids before putting that idea on hold. While looking at how I could insert magnets into existing tiles, I experimented with using sticky tape to hold them in slots made on the edges. This left the tile disfigured, so it would need new labels front and back to make it look nice. Then I had the brainwave to bypass the original tile entirely and make my own from 2mm grey board, using the computer-controlled cutter to cut the perfect label to wrap around the edges. I was really pleased with how the tiles looked and felt, and particularly with how they snapped together, but not so tightly that you couldn't shuffle the tiles.
Okay, the short questions or short answers. Your favorite tile?
Oh, a city extender with pennant is my favourite starting tile. During a game, the corner city splitter is an incredibly valuable tile for stealing cities or escaping from them if being overrun, but it is a double-edged sword, and it's equally dangerous to you if your opponent draws it.
Mm-hmm. What Carcassonne expansion do you prefer?
Oh, I particularly like inns and cathedrals. I like the way the big meeple can completely change the balance of power when fighting for control of a feature, but in a player-controlled way, rather than a random way like you'd get with the dragon, for example.
Okay, big meeples, yes. Another game in BGA.
Oh, within the UK team, we've played several mini-tournaments amongst ourselves of other games. I like games with an element of chance, as it means I still have a chance to win, even against those with more skill than me. One of my favourites is Seven Wonders, since, like Carcassonne, there are several different strategies that can be used to win.
And another game out of BGA catalogue.
Oh, I love playing Balderdash, mostly with my family. With this game, you take turns being the lead and writing down the correct definition of a word, while the other players make up their own definition and pass them to the lead. After they've all been read out, each player has to pick which they think is the correct definition. I love the challenge of creating definitions that are outrageous enough for players to think that can't be right, but just believable enough for them to still to pick it because it's just so tempting.
Chris, have you visited the city of Carcassonne?
Oh, I've hardly ventured outside the UK, so I'm afraid I've not been there yet. I hope to travel there one day, though.
To end the interview, the interviewee interviews the interviewer. You make the questions, I answer it.
Okay, Joaquin. If you could absorb all the skills of any player, including their real life skills, not just their Carcassonne playing skills, which player would you choose?
Wow. I think a player out of Carcassonne. A player out of Carcassonne, Rafael Nadal. He's a strong man, not only in the sport way, but in his mind, he's a man that never leaves his goal. He always pursues the objectives to the end. But about Carcassonne players, I want to say I don't know many players around the world unless in their real lives. So I think it would be possible Wallace Prime. And why? Because you love development than me. You love to be a creative person like me. You love to meet another people who loves the same things like you. I too. But you have reached to create some kind of inventions about Carcassonne. You have finished your studies at the end, and you have reached a great Carcassonne game level. I think it could be the best option I will choose. Chris, thank you so much for visiting Meeple Podcast. I wish you the best of luck with your projects, and also, as I said before, good luck for you at the Team World Cup.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Joaquin. It's been fascinating thinking about aspects of Carcassonne I'd not even considered before. Thank you.
Thanks. And this is all. I see you on the next episode. Bye bye.